Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he walked through the alien junkyard. The place smelled like old metal and something he could not name. Strange ships and broken machines were piled everywhere. Some were as big as houses. Others were small like cars. All of them looked like they had seen better days. Jake was 32 years old and came from Detroit. He made his living by buying old things that nobody wanted. Then he would fix them up and sell them for more money. It was not easy work, but Jake was good at it. He had a gift for seeing value where other people only saw trash. Today he was visiting Kethvar's orbital junkyard. It was a huge space station that floated between Earth and Mars. Aliens from all over the galaxy came here to get rid of their old stuff. For Jake, it was like a treasure hunt every time he visited. Kethvar was a Zephyrian. He had blue skin and 4 eyes that moved around like a lizard. His people were known for being good traders. They were smart and careful with money. But today, Kethvar seemed different. He looked nervous. His 4 eyes kept looking around like he was scared of something. "Morrison human," Kethvar said through his translator box. The device made his voice sound like a robot. "I have something for you. Very cheap. Very good deal." Jake raised his eyebrows. Kethvar never offered cheap deals. The alien trader usually tried to squeeze every penny out of his customers. "What kind of deal?" Kethvar led Jake to the back corner of the junkyard. Other aliens who were shopping seemed to avoid this area. Even the floating worker robots stayed away. In the corner sat what looked like an old spaceship. It was about the size of a city bus, but shaped more like a teardrop. The metal was rust-colored and covered with strange marks that looked like writing. "This ship," Kethvar said, pointing at it with one of his thin fingers. "From old war, very old. Nobody wants it. I sell to you for 60 cents. Jake stared at the alien.
60 cents?
"For a whole spaceship?" Yes. 60 cents. Good price. You take now." Something was wrong. Jake had been dealing with aliens for 5 years, ever since first contact happened. He knew when they were being honest and when they were not. Right now, Kethvar was acting like someone who wanted to get rid of something fast. Jake walked around the ship. The metal felt cold under his hand, even though they were inside the heated station. The writing on the side seemed to move when he was not looking right at it. When he turned his head quickly, the symbols appeared normal again. "What kind of ship is this?" Jake asked. Kethvar's skin changed from blue to a lighter color. "Old ship. From before? Warship, maybe. I not know much. Found it floating in space. Nobody claim it. You want or not?" Jake's business partner would not like this. Lisa Rodriguez was a smart woman who used to work for NASA. She always told Jake to be careful when deals seemed too good to be true. But 60 cents for a spaceship was impossible to pass up, even if something was strange about it. "I'll take it," Jake said. Kethvar moved faster than Jake had ever seen him move. The alien pulled out the ownership papers and shoved them at Jake. His hands were shaking as he held them out. "You sign here, and here. Payment now, please." Jake dug into his pocket and found the coins. As soon as the money touched Kethvar's hand, the alien seemed to relax. But he still looked like he wanted Jake to leave as quickly as possible. "Thank you, Morrison human. Very good business. You take ship now. Today. Right now would be good." As Jake signed the papers, he noticed something strange. All the other aliens in the junkyard were watching him, but they were not standing close. They were all at least 50 feet away. A group of tall gray aliens called Andromedans were pointing at him and talking in their musical language. A family of rock-like creatures called Cronites had stopped their shopping completely and were staring. "Is there something I should know about this ship?" Jake asked. Kethvar's translator made a sound like static. "Nothing important, old ship. Maybe some computer problems. Nothing serious." Jake looked at the ship again. It was definitely old, but the metal seemed solid. The hull was not cracked or broken. Whatever was inside might be valuable. Even if the ship was junk, he could sell the metal for scrap. At 60 cents, he could not lose money. "All right," Jake said. "I'll need to get my transport ship to move it." "I help," Kethvar said quickly. "I help load it right now. Free service. Very good deal for you." Within an hour, Jake had the mysterious ship loaded onto his transport vessel, the Lucky Strike. As they prepared to leave the junkyard, Jake noticed that every alien was watching them go. None of them looked happy. Some looked scared. Lisa's voice came through the radio as they headed back to Luna Station. "How did the shopping trip go?" "Got a real interesting piece today," Jake said, looking back at the rust-colored ship in his cargo hold. Paid 60 cents for a whole spaceship. There was silence on the radio for a moment.
60 cents?
Jake, what did you buy? Not sure yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be worth a lot more than 60 cents. As the Lucky Strike flew through space toward their processing facility, Jake could not shake the feeling that he had just bought more than he bargained for. The way Kethvar had acted, the way the other aliens had stared, the strange writing that seemed to move on its own, everything pointed to this being more than just an old warship. But Jake Morrison had built his business on taking chances. He had made his fortune by buying things that other people were afraid to touch. Whatever secrets this ship held, he was going to find them out. Behind them, the junkyard grew smaller in the distance. Jake did not see Kethvar watching their ship leave. He did not see the alien trader make a quick call on his communication device, and he definitely did not hear the conversation that followed, where Kethvar told someone in a worried voice that the humans had finally taken the cursed ship away. The Lucky Strike flew on through the stars, carrying Jake Morrison and his 60-cent purchase toward a discovery that would change everything. The Lucky Strike docked at Luna Station 3 hours later. Jake and Lisa had built their scrap business in one of the old mining sections of the moon base. It was not fancy, but it had everything they needed. Big work areas, powerful scanners, and enough space to store the strange things Jake liked to buy. Lisa Rodriguez was waiting for them in the main bay. She was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she saw the rust-colored ship being unloaded, her face showed worry. "That's what you paid 60 cents for?" she asked. "Pretty good deal, right?" Jake said with a grin. Lisa walked around the ship slowly. She pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the hull. The device made strange beeping sounds and flashed red lights. "Jake, these readings don't make sense. The metal is showing properties that shouldn't exist." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this stuff is reading as both solid and liquid at the same time." "That's impossible." Lisa frowned at her scanner, and the age readings are all over the place. Some parts say it's a few hundred years old, other parts say it's older than our solar system. Jake shrugged. "Alien technology is weird. You know that. This is different." "This is..." Lisa stopped talking as the bay doors opened. Thrix walked in. He was one of their best customers, a Corellian who bought rare metals from them every month. Corellians looked like large lizards that walked on 2 legs. They were known for being calm and logical. Thrix had never gotten excited about anything in the 2 years Jake had known him, but when Thrix saw the ship, everything changed. The alien stopped walking so fast that he almost fell over. His green scales turned pale yellow in seconds. He made a sound like a frightened cat and backed toward the door. "Where did you get this?" Thrix asked. His voice sounded strange and scared. "Bought it from Kethvar's yard." "Why? Do you know what it is?" Thrix's scales kept changing colors. "This ship bears the marks of the void touched. No civilized species has disturbed such things for over 2,000 years. "Void touched?" Lisa asked. "What does that mean?" Thrix would not come any closer to the ship. "Ancient technology. Dangerous technology. These ships belong to the architects, the ones who came before. They left warnings. We do not touch their things." "But it's just an old ship," Jake said. "No." Thrix shook his head hard. "Not just a ship. These things have power that can break minds. Many have tried to use architect technology. All have failed. All have suffered. The Corellian trader left without buying anything. This had never happened before. Thrix always bought something when he visited. Over the next few days, more strange things happened. The Andromedan merchants who usually came to buy processed metals sent a message saying they were too busy to visit. A group of Silurian traders who had standing orders for rare alloys suddenly canceled everything. Captain Amy Foster from the Human Trade Commission called on the 3rd day. Amy was a no-nonsense woman who had helped set up trade relations between Earth and the alien civilizations. She did not call unless something important was happening. "Jake, I'm getting complaints," Amy said over the video link. 7 different alien species have contacted me about your facility. They want me to shut you down." "Shut us down? Why?" "They won't say exactly. Something about dangerous artifacts and ancient technology. The Galactic Council is talking about putting your station under quarantine." Jake looked at Lisa, who was running tests on metal samples from the ship. "We haven't done anything wrong. We're just examining what we bought." "What exactly did you buy?" "An old spaceship." "Paid 60 cents for it." Amy was quiet for a moment. "Jake, if alien civilizations are this worried, maybe you should listen to them." These people have been spacefaring for thousands of years longer than us. After the call ended, Lisa showed Jake her test results. They made no sense. The ship's hull was made of materials that seemed to change depending on how you looked at them. Sometimes the metal was harder than diamond. Sometimes it bent like rubber. The scanner readings changed every time she tested the same spot. "Look at this," Lisa said, pointing to her computer screen. "I took samples from 3 different parts of the ship. According to these readings, they're all completely different materials, but when I look at them under the microscope, they look exactly the same. Maybe your equipment is broken. I've tested the equipment 10 times. It's working fine. Jake, this ship is made of stuff that shouldn't exist. The physics don't work." More aliens stopped coming to the station. The few who did visit would not go near the bay where the ship was stored. Word was spreading through the alien community that Jake Morrison had found something dangerous. Dr. Kevin Wright from Earth Science Division arrived on day 5. He was a thin man with gray hair who studied alien technology for the government. He brought a team of scientists and enough equipment to fill 2 shuttles. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Wright said as his team set up their machines, "what you found here could be the most important discovery in human history. It could also be the most dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "We've been researching architect technology since first contact. Every alien species we've talked to has the same story. The architects were beings of incredible power who disappeared long ago. They left behind artifacts that could reshape matter at the atomic level, but every attempt to use these artifacts has ended in disaster." Lisa pointed to the ship. "What kind of disasters?" "Mental breakdown, physical transformation. Some species report that entire research teams simply vanished. Others went insane. The galactic community agreed centuries ago to leave architect technology alone. Dr. Wright's team spent 3 days studying the ship from outside. They would not go near it, but their long-range scanners detected energy readings that scared them. The ship was not just a ship. It was some kind of machine that was still working after thousands of years. "There's something inside," Dr. Wright told Jake. "Something active. The energy readings suggest a central core of some kind. But I strongly advise against trying to enter the vessel." "Why not?" "Because every other species that has tried is either dead or wishes they were." But Jake Morrison had not gotten where he was by playing it safe. He had built his business by taking risks that other people were afraid to take. The ship was his property. He had bought it fair and square, and he was going to find out what was inside. On the 7th day after bringing the ship to Luna Station, Jake made his decision. Despite all the warnings, despite the fear he saw in every alien who looked at his ship, despite Lisa begging him not to take the risk, he was going to enter the vessel. "Jake, please," Lisa said as he put on his spacesuit. "Every expert we've talked to says this is a bad idea." "Every expert said humans would never make it to space either," Jake replied. "Sometimes you have to ignore the experts." As Jake walked toward the ship's airlock, he could feel eyes watching him. Dr. Wright and his team were recording everything. Lisa was monitoring his vital signs. Somewhere out in space, alien observers were probably watching too, waiting to see if the stubborn human would become another victim of the architect curse. The ship's door glowed with soft blue light as Jake approached. It was as if the vessel knew he was coming, as if it was waiting for him. Jake Morrison had always believed that the best treasures were hidden behind the biggest warnings. Today, he was about to find out if that was true. Jake's hand touched the ship's door and it opened with a soft whooshing sound. Blue light spilled out from inside, brighter than anything he had seen before. The light did not hurt his eyes, but it made everything around him seem dim in comparison. "Jake, your heart rate just jumped." Lisa's voice came through his helmet radio. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Jake said, stepping through the doorway. "The door just opened by itself." "That's not possible. The ship has been dead for hours. No power readings at all." Jake looked around the inside of the ship. The corridor was much longer than it should be. From outside, the ship was only about 60 feet long, but this hallway stretched at least 100 feet in front of him. The walls were smooth and dark with lines of blue light running along them like veins. "Lisa, are you getting readings on the inside?" "Negative. The moment you stepped through that door, I lost all sensor contact with the interior. I can still hear you, but that's it." Jake walked down the corridor slowly. His boots made no sound on the floor even though he was wearing heavy space boots. The walls felt warm when he touched them, which was impossible since the ship had been sitting in the cold vacuum of space. "The walls are warm," Jake reported. "That can't be right. The ship's been in our bay for a week with no power source. I'm telling you, they're warm. And there's air in here. My suit is reading normal atmosphere. Dr. Wright's voice cut into the radio channel. Mr. Morrison, please exit the vessel immediately. What you're describing violates several laws of physics. I'm not leaving yet. I want to see what's in the center of this thing. Jake passed several rooms as he walked down the main corridor. He looked into each one, but they were all empty. The rooms were different sizes and shapes. Some were round. Others had corners that did not quite meet right. One room seemed to be bigger on the inside than the outside, which made Jake's head hurt when he tried to figure it out. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared on the walls as he walked. They looked like the writing he had seen on the outside of the ship, but these were moving. They flowed across the surfaces like water, forming patterns that almost made sense before changing into something else. Are you seeing this? Jake asked, pointing his helmet camera at the moving symbols. Seeing what? Your video feed is just showing empty corridors. The writing. It's all over the walls, moving around like it's alive. There was silence on the radio for a moment. Then Dr. Wright spoke again. Mr. Morrison, you may be experiencing hallucinations. This is consistent with reports from other species who have attempted to explore architect technology. I'm not hallucinating. I'm fine. But Jake was starting to wonder if he really was fine. The corridor seemed to be getting longer as he walked. He had been moving for 10 minutes, but the end still looked far away. When he turned around, the entrance he had come through was much farther behind him than it should be. Jake, you've been walking for 15 minutes, Lisa said. How big is this ship inside? I don't know. Bigger than it looks from outside. The corridor finally ended at a large circular room. Jake stepped inside and gasped. The room was enormous, at least 100 feet across and 50 feet high. In the center of the room, floating in the air about 10 feet off the ground, was a sphere of light. The sphere was beautiful. It pulsed with colors that Jake had never seen before. Blues that were deeper than the ocean. Golds that were warmer than sunlight. Purples that seemed to go on forever. As Jake watched, the colors flowed and changed like a living thing. I found something, Jake said into his radio. What is it? Some kind of sphere. It's floating in the air and glowing. Jake, I'm not reading any energy signatures from your location. Are you sure you're seeing something? Jake walked closer to the sphere. As he got nearer, he started to hear something. Not with his ears, but inside his head. It was like a voice, but not quite. More like thoughts that were not his own. The voice was gentle and curious. It felt like someone was asking him questions without using words. Who was he? Where did he come from? What did he want? Hello, Jake said out loud, feeling a little silly. The sphere's light grew brighter. The voice in his head became clearer. It was definitely trying to communicate with him. Images started appearing in Jake's mind. He saw the ship when it was new, flying through space between stars. He saw the beings who had built it, tall, thin creatures made of light and energy. They were the architects, and they had been far more advanced than any civilization that existed today. The architects had created the spheres as tools. Each one contained the power to build or change anything the user could imagine. They could turn rocks into spaceships or water into food, or empty space into whatever was needed. The architects had used these tools to help younger species across the galaxy, but then something had happened. The architects had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. They had become beings of pure energy and left this dimension behind. Before they went, they had hidden their tools and waited for someone worthy to find them. Why didn't the other species succeed? Jake asked the sphere. More images flowed into his mind. He saw Corellians trying to command the sphere, demanding that it obey them. He saw Andromedans attempting to study it, trying to take it apart to understand how it worked. He saw dozens of other species over thousands of years, all trying to force the architect technology to do what they wanted. All of them had failed because they had approached the sphere as something to be conquered or controlled. But the sphere was not a tool in that sense. It was more like a partner. It needed someone who would work with it, not against it. What makes humans different? Jake wondered. The answer came as feelings rather than words. Humans were flexible. They adapted. Where other species saw rules that must be followed, humans saw suggestions that could be changed. Where others saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. The sphere had been waiting for someone who would approach it not as a master seeking a slave, but as a friend seeking another friend. Jake, you've been silent for 5 minutes. Lisa's voice cut through his thoughts. Are you all right? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Lisa, I think this thing wants to work with me. What thing? Jake, your video feed is showing an empty room. Jake reached out his hand toward the sphere. The light grew brighter as his gloved fingers got closer. When he finally touched it, the world exploded into sensation. Energy flowed through him like lightning, but it did not hurt. Instead, it felt like every cell in his body was waking up for the first time. His mind expanded, and suddenly he could understand things that had been mysteries before. He could see the connections between all matter, the patterns that held the universe together. The sphere's consciousness merged with his own. It showed him its true nature, not just a tool, but a living entity that had been alone for centuries. It had watched species after species try to use it for power or wealth or conquest. But Jake was different. Jake saw it as a partner. "Welcome," the voice said in his mind, clearer than ever before. "We have been waiting so long for someone like you." Jake felt the sphere's knowledge flowing into him. He learned how to reshape matter at the molecular level. He understood how to create energy from nothing. He saw how to build ships that could travel between dimensions. But more than that, he felt the sphere's loneliness ending. For the first time in thousands of years, it had found someone who understood what it truly was. "Jake," Lisa's panicked voice broke through his concentration. "Your life signs just went crazy. Get out of there right now!" But Jake could not leave, not yet. He was learning things that no human had ever known. The sphere was teaching him secrets that could change everything for his species. The energy flow stopped, and Jake found himself standing in the center of the room with his hand still touching the sphere. But something was different now. He could feel the sphere's presence in his mind, not controlling him but connected to him. His eyes had changed. In the reflection of his helmet visor, he could see that they now had flecks of the same golden light that pulsed in the sphere. "I think I understand now," Jake said quietly. He was no longer just Jake Morrison, scrap dealer from Detroit. He was something new, the first human to successfully bond with architect technology. And he was about to show the galaxy what humans were really capable of, when they were not afraid to make friends with the unknown. "Lisa," he said into his radio as he walked back toward the entrance, "call Captain Foster. Tell her we need to set up a meeting with the Galactic Council. I have something to show them." Jake walked out of the ship 3 hours after he had entered. To Lisa, it felt like 3 days. She had been watching his life signs go crazy on her monitors. His heart rate had jumped to dangerous levels, then dropped to almost nothing, then spiked again. His brain activity had been off the charts. "Jake!" Lisa ran to him as soon as he stepped out of the airlock. "Are you okay? What happened in there?" Jake smiled, and Lisa noticed something different about his eyes right away. They had always been brown, but now they had tiny flecks of gold in them. The gold spots seemed to pulse with their own light. "I'm fine," Jake said, pulling off his helmet. "Actually, I'm better than I've ever been." Dr. Wright and his team surrounded Jake immediately. They pointed scanners at him and asked a dozen questions at once. The readings they got made no sense. Jake's DNA was the same, but his brain patterns had changed completely. "What did you encounter in there?" Dr. Wright asked. "A friend," Jake said simply. Over the next few hours, Jake tried to explain what had happened. He told them about the sphere, about the architect consciousness, about the knowledge that was now flowing through his mind. But words were not enough to describe what he had experienced. "Show us," Lisa said finally. Jake nodded and walked over to a pile of scrap metal in the corner of the bay. It was just junk, broken pieces of hull plating and twisted support beams that they had been planning to melt down for raw materials. Jake put his hands on the metal and closed his eyes. The gold flecks in his eyes grew brighter. The sphere's presence in his mind stirred, ready to work with him. The metal began to change. The rusty broken pieces flowed like water, reshaping themselves into something new. Within minutes, Jake had created a perfect sphere of gleaming silver metal. But this was not just any metal. It was stronger than anything Lisa had ever seen. "Impossible," Dr. Wright whispered. Jake opened his eyes and smiled. That's what everyone said about humans going to space. Word of Jake's success spread quickly through the station, then to Earth, then out into the galactic community. Within days, representatives from every major alien civilization were demanding to know what had happened. The first to arrive was Thrix, the Corellian trader who had been so frightened of the ship. But this time he was not alone. He brought a team of scientists and military officers from his homeworld. How? Thrix asked, staring at Jake with his large reptilian eyes. How did you succeed where all others have failed? I didn't try to control it, Jake explained. I made friends with it. Friends? The concept seemed to confuse Thrix. It is a tool. Tools do not have friendship. This one does. Over the following week, more aliens arrived. Andromedans with their tall, gray bodies and musical voices. Silurians who looked like walking crystals. Rock-like Chronites who spoke in booming voices. Even some species that humans had never seen before. All of them wanted to understand how Jake had done what no one else could do. Some offered money. Others offered technology. A few made threats. But Jake was not interested in any of their offers. I'm not selling this, he told them, and I'm not giving away the secrets. But I will work with anyone who wants to learn. Captain Amy Foster arrived with a full diplomatic team from Earth. She set up a temporary embassy in one of Luna Station's conference rooms and began organizing meetings with all the alien representatives. Jake, you realize what you've done, don't you? Amy asked during a private meeting. You've just made humanity the most important species in the galaxy. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see what was inside the ship. Well, congratulations. Every civilization out there has been trying to unlock architect technology for thousands of years. Now they all want to know how you did it. The meetings were tense. Many of the alien species were angry that humans had succeeded where they had failed. Others were frightened about what humans might do with such power. A few were simply confused about how it was possible. Lisa attended most of the meetings as Jake's technical advisor. She watched the alien representatives argue and debate and make demands. But she also watched Jake and she saw how he was changing. The transformation was gradual but obvious. Jake's reflexes were faster. His thinking was clearer. He seemed to understand concepts that had been difficult for him before. The sphere's consciousness was not controlling him, but it was definitely influencing him. Are you still you? Lisa asked him one evening as they sat in their workshop. Jake thought about the question seriously. Yes and no. I'm still Jake Morrison from Detroit. I still like old cars and bad coffee and finding treasures in junk piles. But I also know things now that I never knew before. I can see patterns in matter and energy that used to be invisible to me. Does it hurt? No, it's like, imagine you've been looking at the world through a dirty window your whole life and suddenly someone cleaned the glass. Everything is clearer now. The breakthrough came during a meeting with the Galactic Council. Representatives from 12 different civilizations had gathered to discuss what to do about the human situation. Most of them wanted to control or limit Jake's access to the architect technology. This power is too dangerous for one species to possess, declared Prime Minister Vextar of the Andromedan Republic. It must be shared equally among all civilized races. Or better yet, locked away where no one can misuse it, added General Krex of the Corellian Defense Force. Jake listened to them argue for an hour before he finally stood up. You're all missing the point, he said. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. You think I found one sphere, but there are hundreds of them scattered across the galaxy. Maybe thousands. The architects left them everywhere, waiting for someone who could use them properly. The alien representatives looked shocked. Some of them started talking at once, their voices rising in excitement or panic. Jake raised his hand for silence. Here's what you don't understand. The spheres have been trying to activate for centuries. They've been sending out signals, calling for someone to find them, but they only respond to consciousness that approaches them as partners, not masters. What are you saying? Asked Dr. Yenth, a Silurian scientist. I'm saying that right now all across the galaxy, architect artifacts are waking up. They're responding to the fact that one of them finally found a compatible consciousness, and they're all waiting to see what happens next. The room erupted into chaos. Some aliens were excited about the possibility of finally accessing architect technology. Others were terrified about what this might mean for the balance of power in the galaxy. But Jake was not finished. There's something else you should know. The sphere in my ship isn't the only one trying to make contact now. There are 3 more that have activated just since I bonded with mine. One is in Corellian space, one is in the Andromedan system, and one is drifting near the Silurian homeworld. How do you know this? Thrix asked. Jake touched his temple where the gold flecks in his eyes seemed brightest. Because they're all connected. They're all part of the same network. And they're all looking for the right kind of consciousness to work with. The implications hit everyone at the same time. This was not about one human getting lucky with one artifact. This was about a fundamental change in how the galaxy worked. After thousands of years of treating architect technology as cursed and dangerous, someone had finally figured out how to make it work, and that someone was human. "What do you want from us?" Amy Foster asked, speaking for Earth. Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. Some showed fear. Others showed hope. A few showed greed. "I want to teach you," he said simply. "The sphere has shown me that the architects didn't leave these tools to be hoarded or controlled. They left them to be shared, but only with people who understand what they really are." "And what are they?" asked Prime Minister Vextar. Jake smiled, and the gold light in his eyes pulsed brighter. "They're not tools at all. They're friends, and they've been waiting a very long time for someone to realize that." 6 months after Jake's discovery, Luna Station had become the most important place in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of different civilizations filled the docking bays. Diplomats, scientists, and traders from across known space came to see the human who had unlocked the greatest mystery of their time. Jake stood in the main conference room, looking out at representatives from the Galactic Council. The room was packed with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others wore environmental suits. A few existed as energy patterns contained in special chambers. "The results speak for themselves," Jake said, gesturing to the holographic display behind him. "In the past 6 months, we have successfully activated 17 architect spheres across 8 different star systems." The display showed images of the various artifacts that had been awakened. Each one was beautiful in its own way. Some were spheres like the one Jake had found. Others looked like crystals or flowing metal or pure light. But all of them shared one thing. They had remained dormant for thousands of years until Jake had shown the galaxy how to approach them properly. "More importantly," Jake continued, "we have trained representatives from 6 different species to work with the spheres. And we're just getting started." Lisa sat in the front row watching Jake address the council. She was still amazed by how much he had changed. Not just the golden flecks in his eyes or his increased intelligence, but his confidence. The scrap dealer from Detroit had become one of the most influential beings in the galaxy. This, first alien to successfully bond with an architect sphere had been Thrix. The Corellian scientist had spent weeks learning to approach the artifact not as something to be studied, but as a consciousness to be befriended. When he finally succeeded, his scales had taken on the same golden tint as Jake's eyes. "It is unlike anything we have experienced," Thrix had reported afterward. "The sphere does not simply follow commands. It collaborates. It suggests improvements to our ideas. It shows us possibilities we never considered." Since then, representatives from the Andromedans, Silurians, and 3 other species had achieved successful bonds. Each success had led to remarkable breakthroughs. The Andromedans had used their sphere to develop new forms of faster-than-light travel. The Silurians had created materials that could survive in the cores of stars. But the real revolution was not technological. It was social. For the first time in recorded history, Jake told the council, "Our species are working together as true partners. The spheres don't just give us tools, they give us perspective. They help us see beyond our own limitations." Captain Amy Foster, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, stood up to address the assembly. "The human government has a proposal for the council's consideration." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that whatever Earth proposed would be important. "We want to establish the Architect Heritage Foundation," Amy announced, a joint organization dedicated to finding and awakening the remaining artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. "What would be the purpose of this foundation?" asked Prime Minister Vextar. "To ensure that architect technology is used for the benefit of all civilizations, not just a few," Amy replied. "Jake has shown us that these artifacts respond to cooperation, not competition. The Foundation would reflect that principle." The debate that followed was intense but respectful. Gone were the days when different species shouted at each other across conference tables. The spheres had taught their bonded partners something important about communication and understanding. Dr. Kevin Wright, who had been studying the spheres for months, presented his research findings. "What we've learned challenges everything we thought we knew about consciousness and intelligence. The spheres are not artificial intelligence in any sense we understand. They are something else entirely, a form of life that exists in the spaces between matter and energy. What does that mean for us? Asked General Krex of the Corellian Defense Force. It means we are not just using tools left behind by the architects. We are forming partnerships with entities that share their knowledge and perspective. In a very real sense, the architects never left. They just changed into something we couldn't recognize until now. The vote to establish the Architect Heritage Foundation was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, every major civilization agreed to work together on a project of this scale. Jake was chosen as the Foundation's first director, with Lisa as his chief technical advisor. Their headquarters would remain on Luna Station, but research centers would be established throughout the galaxy. There's something else, Jake announced as the council meeting was ending. The sphere has been showing me images of other things the architects left behind. Not just individual artifacts, but entire installations, libraries of knowledge, construction facilities that could build anything we can imagine. Even what looks like a communications network that connects different parts of the universe. How many of these installations are there? Asked Dr. Yenth. Jake closed his eyes and consulted with the sphere's consciousness. The golden light in his pupils grew brighter as he accessed information that no other being in the galaxy possessed. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The architects were preparing for something big before they transcended. They left us everything we would need to follow in their footsteps. Follow in their footsteps how? Amy asked. They evolved beyond the need for physical bodies, but they didn't want the knowledge and experience of biological life to be lost forever. So they created the spheres as teachers, waiting for species that were ready to learn. The implications were staggering. The galaxy was not just gaining access to advanced technology, it was being offered a path to transcendence itself. 3 years later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Foundation's newest research station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from 24 different civilizations working together to excavate an architect installation on the planet below. Lisa joined him at the window, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She had changed too over the years. Not as dramatically as Jake, but working closely with architect technology had sharpened her mind and broadened her perspective. Remember when our biggest worry was whether we could afford to refuel the Lucky Strike? She asked, handing him a cup. Jake laughed. I remember when 60 cents seemed like a lot to pay for a spaceship. They watched the excavation work in comfortable silence. Humans worked alongside Corellians, Andromedans, and species that had been strangers just a few years ago. The golden light of active architect spheres could be seen throughout the dig site as bonded partners collaborated on the delicate work of uncovering ancient secrets. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had listened to all those warnings? Lisa asked. Sometimes. But I think the spheres would have found another way. They've been patient for thousands of years. I just happened to be the first person stubborn enough to ignore good advice. Jake's communicator chimed with an incoming message. The signal was coming from the outer rim of the galaxy, where a joint expedition had been searching for rumored architect sites. Director Morrison, came the excited voice of Commander Helen Walsh, the expedition leader. We found something. It's big. Bigger than anything we've seen before. How big? It's an entire moon, sir, hollow. And it's full of spheres. Thousands of them. All dormant and waiting. Jake exchanged glances with Lisa. 3 years of discoveries, and they were still finding surprises. We're on our way, Jake said into the communicator. As they prepared to leave for the outer rim, Jake thought about how much had changed since that day in Kethvar's junkyard. He had bought a rusty spaceship for 60 cents and accidentally changed the course of galactic civilization. The sphere's consciousness stirred in his mind, sharing his amusement at the irony. From its perspective, there had been no accident. It had been guiding events for centuries, waiting for the right moment and the right person to begin the next phase of galactic evolution. Ready for another adventure? Lisa asked as they boarded their ship. Jake looked back at the research station, then forward toward the stars where new mysteries waited to be discovered. Somewhere out there, an entire moon full of architect spheres was waiting for beings brave enough to approach them as friends rather than masters. Always, Jake said with a grin. Besides, I have a feeling we're just getting started. Their ship launched into space, heading toward the outer rim and whatever wonders waited there. Behind them, Luna Station continued its work of bringing together the galaxy's diverse species in common cause. And in junkyards and salvage yards across known space, Other treasure hunters were beginning to pay more attention to the strange artifacts that other people were afraid to touch. After all, if a scrap dealer from Detroit could change the galaxy with a 60-cent purchase, who knew what other bargains were waiting to be found? The age of the architects was not over. It was just beginning again, guided this time by the stubborn curiosity of humanity and the growing wisdom of a galaxy learning to work together. Jake Morrison had bought more than a spaceship for 60 cents. He had purchased the future itself.